Hello everyone, my name's Alex. I'm the creator of the wands from Timeless Wands. I'm here today kind of show you guys how to make your first wand. I use a lathe, which is much different than some other people. There's different styles and whatnot. I like the lathe. I think it's a little bit easier than whittling, and it's less time consuming, and it also can make things really symmetrical, and that's what I really like. And then in this video, I'm going to show you some of the tools that I use, but then also kind of how simple wands that you can actually make, just first starting out, what kind of tools that you need just to make your first wand. All right, so here are some of the tools that I use. First of all, you're going to need a blank piece of wood. I usually buy them, I can't remember what size this is, maybe 3 by 3/4. And I think they're 15, 16 inches long, maybe 18. I'll split it in threes. So I'll have one piece here, 2, 3, and I'll use those. And I'll cut it down, and then sometimes this extra end I'll use to make smaller wands. So you want to get, some people use dowels, but I think when you use dowels, it's hard to get the center part. But if you use a square, you can put X's, and that's going to be your center mark each time. So it makes it a little bit easier that way. Also, when you're doing more, detailed work, files are, really crucial to get, some of the details that you want. Also, different types of triangle files. I like a saw too, a nice saw. It does really good on kind of, cutting the ends off. Does a good job on that. So I brought these here. These are, I would say, the most important gouges and wood turning tools that you need. If you're going, you can buy a whole set, but if it's financially more better, I would just get these three. These are the three that I use the most. I grind these myself and to sharpen. But this one is really good for like fine working. You can make little balls and stuff like that. This one is too, but you kind of can get a good taper with your wand. And this is really kind of making turn your square into a cylinder, essentially, to make it into the wand stick itself. This takes a lot of the wood out of it. And then if you're going into more little fine details, this is actually my favorite Dremel. I like it because it's really, it feels like a pencil, So it's way easier. Some of these Dremels are like super heavy and so hard to use. And this one has really good power for what it does and what I really need it to. And it does a great job. So this is my favorite one. This is my second one I've used since I've been wand making. My other one broke. But I started using this one, and it does great. And I mean, it's actually a pretty cheap Dremel compared to the rest. I think it was $20 or $30, something like that. So these are the tools I use. Oh, and then I can't forget my dust mask. This one has seen better days, but making sure you don't get all this dust and wood shavings in your lungs is pretty good, because you're gonna start having black boogers come out of your nose if you don't use this stuff. So I'm going to get started, and we'll, make our first wand together. So we're going to go through step-by-step process of pretty much how I do my wands. I'm going to make a pretty basic wand for this one, just so you kind of get the idea how to do it. So what I do, I like to get a straight edge. It could be anything. It could be a ruler, piece of wood, and get a pretty decent X marked. And this X will be a guideline to where I put the block on the lathe. When I first started out, I got a really cheap lathe online on Amazon. I got a credit card from Amazon, and it was like they gave you $200 extra for signing up for a credit card. And when I did that, I was able to buy my first lathe with it. So I'll show you how to set up your lathe if you're first starting out. I like to use a hammer. And I put this in, try to get in between those two lines for the X. Hammer it in, just that edge. Then I'll slide the other piece down. Same thing, put it in there. Tighten it really tight. And then screw it in. Some people, I mean, you can get particular when you're messing with your lathes, like tightness and all that stuff. But with wand making, it's, you know, doesn't have to be very exact, because your piece isn't going to fly off. I mean, it might, but it's pretty rare. I mean, it's never happened to me unless my piece breaks. But that's why I've been trying to buy better quality wood so it doesn't break. So I'm going to zoom you guys in closer so you can kind of see the process of making a simple wand. All right, so I've got my piece of wood in between my lathe. I'm going to stick with this gouge to kind of, you know, thin it out, make a square into a circle pretty much. All right, so once you're all done sanding, you're going to want to cut it off. So Usually I like to make a little point right here, but, you know, for this video, it's alright. You can just put one side here, this loose a little bit. And then you want to cut this in. Sometimes you can just break it like that. Then I'll come over to my belt sander and kind of give this better of a tip. Same thing with this one right here. Kind of give the wand a better tip on both sides. I know I could have just, you know, turned on my lathe, but I like to do it this way because I kind of can be more precise with it. So I don't gouge into it too fast or, you know, sand too much, you know, on the wand itself. So we're kind of back where we started. This is the wand. You know, not too difficult of a design. You know, if you're just starting out, I wouldn't try to go for something like this. But if you have experience with, you know, a lathe and kind of know how to make designs and stuff, you know, I would definitely go for it. Definitely different types of ways to finish a wand. Shellac, it's my favorite because it really penetrates, you know, the fibers of the wood itself. And, you know, I just like the finish itself. And then I like how it, you know, kind of how it's created essentially too. I usually use walnut finishing oil for my wands before I use shellac or, you know, any type of sealant like that. And also you can think this stuff is pretty good. You know, I do like walnut finishing oil better just because it gives, you know, wands like it makes them a little darker. And you can put them out in the sun and they get really dark. It's pretty cool. But with this type of oil, it's not as dark. It kind of keeps the same natural color. So if you're looking for something like that, I would definitely do that as well. So, you know, this is the finished wand, the finished product. Hope you guys enjoyed.